Our speaker this afternoon has traveled around the world documenting extraordinary people, places, and events. He has worked in over 100 countries under UNICEF, the New York Times, PBS, and Frontline News.
Thomas Nybo works as a freelance filmmaker and photographer. He has documented world events such as the Syrian refugee crisis, the Nepal earthquake, and the state of the Middle East. His stunning photography is a very powerful and very real look into the world we live in.
Thomas Nybo graduated from Helena High School with the class of 1989. While in high school, he participated in wrestling and was an all-state football player.
Today, Thomas has flown in from Afghanistan, where he has been on assignment for UNICEF.
We are honored to introduce this incredible man to all of you today.
So without further ado,
the Helena High Class of 2017 Commencement speaker, Thomas Nybo.
Thank you. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing. That is the challenge before you, Class of 2017. It's quite simple. Those are your choices. A daring adventure or nothing. I choose a daring adventure, and I hope you do too, because that means you have passion, and the world needs more people with passion. The courageous woman who wrote those words, a daring adventure or nothing, was blind and deaf. So what excuse do we have? What excuse do you have for not embracing a daring life of adventure? Helen Keller went on to say, security is mostly a superstition. It does not exist in nature, nor do the children of men as a whole experience it. Avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than outright exposure. The fearful are caught as often as the bold. That bears repeating. The fearful are caught as often as the bold. So let us be bold, for as the Latin proverb states, fortune favors the bold. So graduates, I ask you, why am I standing here before you? Why me? Because this beautiful community, and my parents in particular, encouraged me to ask, why not me? A quick shout out to my mother, Suzanne, who is here today. I love you, Ma, and I thank you for pushing me to get out there and to choose a daring adventure. I was encouraged to embrace the risk of failure, to live outside of my comfort zone, because outside of your comfort zone is where life truly begins. One of the smartest decisions I've made when I was in my 20s is when I tried to quit my job. I was working at CNN and spending all of my days in a newsroom writing stories on a computer. But I wanted to get out and experience the world firsthand. I went to my boss and told her I was going to quit and travel the world. Thomas, why don't you take 3 months off and we'll hold your job for you? My response, why don't I take 6 months off and you hold my job for me? She was a bit taken aback, to say the least. She fumbled at her computer for a moment, like a car salesman going to talk to his manager, and then she said yes. I sold my kayak, I sold my extra cameras, and I sold my guitar, and I moved to Costa Rica with my backpack and my mountain bike, and I worked my way up through Central America, across Mexico, and lived for a summer in Cuba on about $8 a day, which was possible when living illegally in the spare bedroom of a pair of Cuban doctors. During these travels, I learned Spanish and fell in love with a German woman with an Australian accent. I learned to surf and dance salsa and climb volcanoes. I fell out of love with the beautiful German woman with the Australian accent. And something wonderful happened. I learned, I believe, for the first time in my life, to truly embrace the unknown. I was forced to meet new people on a daily basis, outside of my comfort zone in the United States. this boy from Montana had finally become a citizen of the world. And when I returned to CNN 6 months later, I was a changed man. I had swagger. I wanted to be an on-camera reporter, so I hired an editor and a guy with a camera and put together my first CNN news package starring myself. The story? The growing popularity of salsa dancing in the United States. It even had me on camera, dancing with my beautiful Latina instructor. One night, at the end of a long overnight writing shift, I dropped the tape off to the president of CNN Headline News, Bob Fernand, hoping he might approve it for air at some point in the future. He must have liked it because 4 hours later, my roommate at the time ran in and woke me up. "Dude, you are on TV." And there I was with this beautiful bald head on televisions across the country dancing salsa. Later, I was working as a writer and editor in the main CNN newsroom, and I could see out of the corner of my eye the glass-enclosed office of the network president, Eason Jordan. I'll let you in on a secret. For weeks, I was biding my time to ambush Eason Jordan. One hot day, fire season hit California, and I waited a few days until Eason Jordan's secretary left early. Then I marched up to his office, like a boss, I might add, with my laptop and knocked on his door. "Mr. Jordan," I told him, "my name is Thomas Nybo, and I can do it all. I can shoot, I can report, and I can edit stories on my laptop. I'm also a former volunteer firefighter from Choteau, Montana. And you should send me out to California by myself to report on the wildfires." Can you believe the audacity? Eason Jordan smiled. The next day, his assistant called me. "Pick a fire, Thomas, any fire in California, and you go report on it. You leave in 2 days." And so I picked a fire. I flew to Oakland, rented a car, and drove to the smoke. And I'm not going to lie, I crushed it. That's what it takes. Get out of your comfort zone and know that at life's crucial moments, you need to go all in. Soup to nuts, baby. When the war in Iraq was about to start in 2003, and CNN wanted to embed reporters with U.S. troops, I was one of the first journalists called. All of a sudden, this guy from Helena High School is in a war zone having daily conversations on live television with Wolf Blitzer and Anderson Cooper. None of this would have happened had I listened to the voices of my supervisors. None of this would have happened had I listened to my many critics. You know what I say? F your critics. That's right, that's right. I said it, I said it, I said it. Forget your critics. You will find out soon enough that if you don't know what you want in life, there's a long line of people who will guide you. And that guidance is often the beginning of a slow, torturous path to misery. Trust me. Allow me to backtrack, if I may. Take a moment, seriously, and look around you. Whether you loved high school or had a wretched time, and you can't wait to get out of here, you are in this together. We are in this together. Everything you've accomplished and learned and survived at this point has happened within this beautiful community. I want to show you something. It's my Montana driver's license. I haven't lived here for more than 20 years, but everywhere I go around the world, I carry my Montana driver's license. I have 2 motorcycles and a truck with Montana plates. Why? Because for me, it's 406 for life. Montana is in my blood. I live in Atlanta, I work around the world, but I am from Montana. Montana is a part of our story. Your story, my story, even if we leave Montana. Around the world, people sit up and take notice when I mention that I'm from Montana. Montana is a brand, literally. If you travel to parts of Mexico, Israel, Mexico, or Russia, you will find Montana cigarettes. They're kind of like Marlboros, only cheaper and presumably a tad more dangerous. Montana to much of the world represents the Wild West, a tough, rugged place with mountains, cowboys, you know, the place where Leonardo DiCaprio was mauled by a grizzly bear and a reporter was mauled by a politician. The friends and family here with you today represent your community. And as you move forward, it's important to remember this community and understand what makes this community strong, what makes this community good. What makes it the kind of community you want to be a part of, whether you're living in Helena, Bozeman, Kathmandu, Mogadishu, or Ouagadougou. My mother said, "Is Ouagadougou a place?" And I said, "Yeah, Mom, and I've been there 3 times." For the past 15 years, I've traveled the world, spending roughly half of my time visiting slums, refugee camps, a few war zones, countries hit by typhoons, tsunamis, and earthquakes. I've met presidents and kings, celebrities and famous athletes. I've spent Valentine's Day with David Beckham, touring spots devastated by a typhoon in the Philippines. I've walked with supermodel Heidi Klum through the most dangerous neighborhood in Haiti. But the people who impress me most, the people I consider my heroes, are the underdogs. The ones who make communities strong, the ones who stand up and fight, especially when the odds seem impossible. In Afghanistan a week ago, I met a girl named Zara who would be a freshman at Helena High this year if she had been born here. But Zara was born in Afghanistan. When she was 6, tending to her family's sheep in the hills, Zara stepped on a landmine. It blew off half her foot. An infection meant doctors had to cut off the leg just below the knee. I don't tell you this story to depress you. I hate that we live in a world where a child, any child, has to face something as vicious and depraved as a landmine. But I am proud to be working alongside the people who built her school, and in the process created a place where Zara knows she deserves to be in a classroom, that she deserves to be given a safe environment to play, that she deserves to know that her life is important and that her dreams matter. After I met her, Zara ran out of the school to the playground to join her friends. Her laughter was the most beautiful thing I've heard in a long, long time. It's a given in this life that bad things will happen. The only question we're left with then is, do we have the courage to make good things happen? Do we have what it takes to step forward and make our communities and the global community strong and accepting and kind? The kind of place like Helena, Montana, where I am inspired by you. And the journey of students like Clayton Canty. Clayton, as you likely know, weighed less than 2 pounds at birth. Doctors told his parents that Clayton would suffer lifelong lung problems and severe asthma. But Clayton Canty is a fighter. Clayton Canty worked his tail off with no reasonable expectations of athletic success. And this season, Clayton Canty made the varsity squad running cross country. I'm proud of you, Clayton, and I'm proud of this community. I'm going to tell you about another girl, this one 15 years old. She would be a sophomore if she grew up in Helena, but she grew up in Romania. And someone in her family sold her as a sex slave when she was just 11 years old. She was forced to have sex with half a dozen men every day for years in a back room. When she told me her story, I could barely keep it together. Her story haunts me to this day. And the only reason I was able to speak with this girl is because of a personal hero of mine. Her name is Yana Matei, and her calling in life is to rescue girls who've been sold into the sex trade. She kidnaps the girls who have been kidnapped, and she restores their dignity and their hope as much as anyone can. To this day, Yana has personally had a hand in rescuing nearly 500 girls who have been sold and forced into a brutal life of prostitution. A wise sage by the name of Mr. Rogers once shared a story that sums up courageous women like Yana. He said, "When I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, 'Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. If you look for the helpers, you will know there is hope.' The helpers make a community strong. The helpers remind us of the power of good people doing the right thing. We can be, we should be the helpers." Most of my work these days is traveling to difficult places and telling the stories of children in peril. Children like Zara, children like Munir, a 17-year-old boy whose school in Afghanistan was bombed by the Taliban. His left arm was partially paralyzed in the attack, and his family sent him on a dangerous path to Europe by himself to try to start a better life. When I met Munir, he was living by himself in a tent in a park in Serbia. He had run out of money, and he was unable to continue his journey. When I met him, my first question, "Does your mother know you're alive?" It had been 2 weeks since he had spoken to her. I handed him my iPhone, and he called her back in Afghanistan, and he told her, "Mom, I'm safe, and I'm with people who want to help me." That's all it took to be a helper. I want each and every one of you, whether your name is Levi Rispens, or Jimmy Sabonia, or Lauren Roach, or Madison Tyson, to have a life that is a daring adventure, a life of consequence, a life where you are a helper. You are the person who stands up for the oppressed, the abused, the most vulnerable. I asked my friends on Facebook what advice they had for you, the class of 2017. Here are some of my favorites. Put down your phone. Get a passport. Never eat Hot Pockets. Ever. Experiences over things, always. Helena's own Teacher of the Year, Kelly Elder, said, "Be the voice for those without a voice." A friend of mine I met in Afghanistan said, "Play nice with other children, share your toys, and if you have nothing nice to say, it's time to be quiet." Seek to change minds, especially your own. Certainty is death. Assume your life is long, so be patient. Assume your life is short, so don't waste it. Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness, and many people need it sorely on these accounts. Mark Twain said that first. He's not my friend on Facebook. Pursue more of what you want most and less of what you want right now. And finally, and perhaps this is the best advice, if you're expecting to gain wisdom and insight from my speech, stop listening now. The only way anyone ever truly learns anything is through their own experience. Class of 2017, I thank you and I salute you. Go boldly forth into this world and embrace this daring adventure and be a helper. Good luck.